Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to start the Magna after it's been sitting here in storage cold for almost 4 months. So first I'm going to just try and start it naturally. I've just reconnected the battery, we'll see if it starts. So the reason for taking her out of storage is to get a registration inspection and then renew the rego, which is due on the 23rd of April. So I'll just be taking her home and doing a bit of work, oil change, filter change, clean up the engine bay, a few other odds and ends. I've also got a few things that I want to do to it as well. So I'll probably have her at home for a couple of weeks or so before returning her to storage again. So I'm just standing outside now while the car is idling. I think I've touched on it before, but when you restart the car after a dead battery, it needs to relearn how to idle. And while it's doing that, it's filling up the garage with fumes, so I can't actually be in there right now. So I'm just going to wait 10 minutes. I just turned the car on. I set the trip computer to sedan and 3.5 litre, and I haven't actually touched the gear shifter at all. So I'm just basically letting it idle in neutral, no air conditioning on. But there is also a process, I believe, where you actually shift the car into reverse, let it adjust its idle, then into drive, adjust its idle, turn the air conditioning on, adjust its idle, and that apparently will prevent it from stalling when you kind of approach a set of traffic lights or a stop, because it becomes very frustrating if you don't actually go through that procedure. It's just constantly having to left foot brake and make sure that you've got some throttle so it doesn't actually stall, and let it work itself out. Now, it will work itself out after about 2 weeks or so, I find, but it's just a complete pain in the ass for that first 2 weeks. It's just constantly wanting to stall. So yeah, I'm just going to try and wait for it to work itself out before I leave, and I'll report back. Well, actually, I'm going to put the GoPro on for the drive home, just so you can come with me on a bit of a drive in the Magna. It's been quite some time since I've done that, so I'll do that. Alright, let's rock and roll. So I won't touch the clock or anything like that for now. I'll do that when I get back. I just want to make sure that the car isn't stalling. So I'll just back her out. I've just got to put some air in the front left because I couldn't get to that tyre from where the car is positioned, and then we'll head off. I almost thought I was going to back into the garage door, but the boot lid's up. Jeez. Wow, that's actually quite disconcerting. Got to take her slow because I put her up right up against the wall, so I don't want to hit the mirror. so far so good. No stalling. I've got the air conditioning on now, and I mean the revs are sitting pretty low, but hasn't stalled yet, so touch wood, will be all good from here on. One I suppose characteristic of older cars, and this car in particular, is that you're always aware of the engine. You can always hear the engine going. That's kind of the most prominent sound, which I quite like, particularly when it's a nice engine like this one here, 6G74. And I've got to say, I mean, for 600,000 kilometres, I mean, we're at 598,688 here. It drives okay. It's very smooth. The steering's good. I mean, it's not as tight as kind of the Serato, so you know, it feels a little bit more unrefined getting out of that car and into this one, as well as the ride as well, which was never really a strong suit in the Magna around town. I didn't really think the urban ride was all that good. Never thought it was that good. The Camry of the same era, which my parents had, that had a lovely ride. That was sitting on a Lexus ES300 platform, but it kind of fell down when you hit the motorway, whereas this shines on the motorway. So the ride really settles down on the motorway. It tracks very straight, and I've always felt safe driving this car on the motorway, which I did for almost 20 years commuting, and even in poor weather everyone was slowing down, which I know that you should do, but this car just felt so confident that it would just be completely unfazed. Aquaplaning, no problem, it will just go straight through. Just don't hit the brakes, it'll go straight through. And I had a work colleague about 20 years ago now said, I gave him a lift home once, we were doing some overtime, and he remarked that the Magna was the most stable and straight tracking car he'd ever driven. He hired one to drive to Queensland back in the day, and there you go. So that's not just me. So yeah, but I will say though, I mean, I haven't driven this car for almost 4 months, and it's quite serene. I mean, I can hear the engine, which I'm quite happy about. I've been driving a Serato, which has the engine note of a sewing machine, so it's nice to have a smooth 6 in front of me. It's very quiet otherwise. Shifts are smooth. This is the original 4-speed auto, which, you know, apparently had a reputation for being a little bit troublesome, but I've had no trouble whatsoever. I've just basically done fluid changes, and that is it. It has been reliable the entire way through. And you know when you need to do a fluid change, because in 4th gear it starts to hesitate, like it starts to kind of, you'll know the sensation. But that is the signal just to change the fluid, and you're good to go. But otherwise, yeah, excellent gearbox, no problems. I think this is going to be a slow lane, so I will, I'll stay. Everyone's going to Bunnings, you see, which is a left turn up here, so I want to get past, stop in and get some petrol. Well, being patient with the idling seems to have paid off. If I had just driven off this car would have been constantly stalling. So it's worth it just to wait and let her sort herself out. One other reason I like being back in my Magna, amongst many reasons, is that I have a CD player again. They've ripped CD players out of all the modern cars, so you need to basically connect your phone up and use Spotify or whatever, USB, storage sticks or all that kind of shit. And I've got all these CDs because, well, that's what we bought back when I was growing up. Can't play them unless you rip them onto a storage disc, so I'm quite happy to have a CD player again. I'll chuck some in. And also the speakers, which in this car are completely standard, they've always been standard. The sound quality is so much better than in the Serato. Far more clarity and clear bass. And when I had I've had a few head units in this car over the years. So the standard one is just a single DIN CD player radio, and then I put in, I think from a, might have been a KF Ferrata, a 6 stacker. So the head unit had no CD, but the stacker was in the boot. And I think I ended up putting it under the front passenger seat. And then I managed to source I think it was a TL Premium 6 stacker, which I still have. I'm never going to sell that. And geez, the stereo had some kick when I put that in. I couldn't believe how good the stereo is with that premium unit, but by having that unit in, I have obviously a 6 stacker CD player, which is great, but I don't have a reverse camera, so I lose that. So, I mean, this isn't too bad. Yeah. Oh, and the other thing too, just on the stereo while I'm yabbering on about it, is that the radio reception, again, I knew that there was an issue with a lot of European cars, couldn't pick up AM clearly. My Serato, the radio reception is pretty average, particularly on the motorway. AM, you pretty much get static once you go past Barara, heading north to the Central Coast. This though, perfect. I probably need to replace the fan blower motor at some stage. Given this car's done so many miles, I have been through, I think I might be on my 3rd blower motor, and they've always been second hand. So either out of just, well, obviously out of wrecked Magnas, either bought online, or I think I may have actually got one myself out of a car. It's not the easiest thing to access, but you can do it. There's just one, I think, screw which is very hard to access, but the other two, I think there's only 3 that actually hold it in. But you can get that out. But I'm thinking of just buying a brand new one, just given I don't drive this car much, and it probably will be the last one I'll ever need. Just, yeah, they're about $200 and something, I think, on eBay is the going price for them, whereas these second-hand ones that I've always purchased have been well under 100. So, but you just can hear the clicking, which then kind of fades behind the actual blowing sound of the air once you turn it up, but when it's on the lowest fan speed, it's a bit annoying. there's a few things I need to do to prepare it for a registration check. They're not significant items, but I also want to give it a service. So I only basically do the oil change every kind of once a year now, because the car's just sitting idle for most of the year. So I used to do it twice a year when I was driving it for work, but I just don't think there's any point doing it that often anymore. So I'll do an oil change, filter change. Just want to check the rear muffler because I picked up on that I think the year before last. There were some holes which I patched up, and the reason why I patched the muffler up rather than replacing it is because you can't get this muffler anymore, and I don't want to replace it with a standard one, which are everywhere on eBay, and I've got one in my shed, but it just dulls the character of the car too much. I'd like to hear the exhaust note. So this is a Lukey muffler, which I've had on the car since about, I think, 2008, 2009. So I just want to check and make sure that there's no leaks or anything, and I'll also just give the engine bay a bit of a degrease because, again, there are some leaks, as I suppose you would expect on a car of this age and mileage. So I'm just going to clean that up, and it should go through as long as they don't observe any drips while it's being inspected. That's what they told me. If there is no drips, then they'll pass it. Even if it's leaking, they just don't want to see it drip. But apart from that, you know, I normally get some pretty positive comments when they see it. So, yeah. Well, we're almost home now, so I'll end the video shortly. Hope you like this little drive in the Magna. I'll try and do some more, maybe some night ones on the motorway. But I have some more videos planned, obviously, for the Magna while I've got it. And if you like this style of video where I'm just driving and talking about the Magna, let me know and I'll do some more, because there's plenty to talk about with respect to this car and just things in general. So I'll leave it there for now. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below and I'll get back to you. And as always, thanks for watching. Cheers.